right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Pipeline podcast. This really is the only podcast that gives you guys the blueprint of how to smoke the competition. So joining me today, I have our Google Ads specialist, Dave, as well as someone from our account management team who's really done a great job of setting expectations, Lorenz. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about Google Ads today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get rocking and rolling. So a lot of people come to us at Pipeline and they want to run ads, but the biggest thing we talk about and try to align expectations with is budgeting. So a lot of people will come to us and say, hey, I have $1,000 to spend on Google Ads. Am I going to be a millionaire by the next month? Am I going to generate 50 leads every single month? So let's jump right into it. So Dave, what do you think about somebody when they come with these sort of expectations?
Well, the first thing that jumps out, and I think that's the first thing that people look over or overlook, is the fact that the cost per click is something that's really, really increasing in the past couple of years. A lot more people are using Google as a form of marketing, and they're using that to kind of like generate leads. So therefore, what it's doing is it's causing each click to be a little bit more expensive. And what happens is when you have $1,000, most cost per clicks or most keywords are about between 10 to $50 per click, right? So if you do the math, you're probably only getting about maybe 20 to 100 clicks per month. And then you have to factor in a conversion rate as well, which is between about 5 to 10%. So you're really only looking at between 1 to 10 leads per month. And I mean, depending on what kind of business you have, I don't know if that's enough leads to support your business.
Yeah, right. Because, if you're going to run Google Ads in the first place, the goal is to create a lead generation funnel. And if you don't really have the budget to sustain that, it's like maybe you shouldn't be running Google Ads. Maybe that's not the best option for you. So Lorenz, speaking front facing with a lot of our clients, what are a lot of their sort of like expectations when they come on board with Google Ads? And let's just say if they had $1,000 budget.
Okay, so usually when our clients come on board, they give me like they're expecting about 20 to 50 leads per month, regardless of the budget that they have. And this is usually for people who have not tried Google Ads before. And so what I do is to explain to them how far that budget can go. As Dave said, CPC is very important. So we use the baseline of the industry standard CPC and explaining it to them and how far that will go, the $1,000 will go, depending on the industry that they're on. And from there, they would realize and they can expect, properly how much leads they can have for $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Because Google is like a bidding system, right? In order for you to show up for a very high intent search, there's other people that are bidding on those keywords. So if you want to get exposure in Google Ads, you have to have a solid bid for a very high intent search. And that's really why we're filming this episode today, right? Because a lot of home service business owners, they think of Google Ads kind of like Amazon Prime, right? It's like the next day shipping. It's just customers are going to show up right at your doorstep. And while Google Ads is a great lead funnel, it's really important to understand what sort of performance that you're going to get based off of that budget, right? And Google even states 10% is the standard conversion rate, but a well-optimized campaign, which needs time to build to get that momentum, you could shoot for those higher conversion rates in the 20 to 30 percentile. Is a lot of the people that come to us, before they even sign on, right? We want to do a market analysis. We want them to understand how competitive their local area is. And that way, even at point of sale, right, we're aligning those sort of expectations. But the reality of the situation is, 5 years ago, $1,000 was a pretty healthy budget. But now with Google Ads getting more and more competitive, there's more people leveraging something like Google Ads, right? You have to have a budget to sustain those clicks in order to generate those leads. So I guess what sort of, where does the panic sort of happen, Dave? If somebody's running a Google Ads campaign, let's just say it's been going for like a week or two, is that enough time to really understand the performance of a Google Ads campaign?
That's a great question, Jake. And like you said, a lot of clients, when they first start running Google Ads, they kind of run into this panic mode when they don't see any leads come in the first 2 weeks. But what happens is, Google Ads usually, when you start a Google Ads campaign, is Google will enter what we call a learning phase. This learning phase takes between 2 to 4 weeks, where Google is just basically going out and looking for your ideal client, right? So if you're a roofer, for example, and you're offering roof installations, right? But in that same industry, there's a lot of other things that could play in a part also, right? So you could be looking for roof repairs, or you could be looking for gutters and things like that. So Google will make sure that as the leads and clicks start coming in, it will look for which leads are converting. And as those clicks convert, Google will know who your ideal client is, and then you'll start having, we'll be able to optimize a little bit better, but you'll see a conversion rate jump up.
Yeah. And so what I'm getting out of this, right? It sounds like Google's more of like a momentum-based platform where even during those first, 2 weeks or so, it is in the learning phase. You still might generate leads during that time, but Google's trying to understand like who your audience really is, like what's leading to a conversion, right? We set a lot of parameters in place to make sure, obviously, you get the higher conversion rate, off the jump. But at the same time, your ads aren't even being displayed as often as they could during that learning phase. So you really got to give it time if you're going to be investing in something like Google Ads. And then the other thing, right? If you have $1,000 budget and you're trying to run something like Google Ads, you're not really buying domination of that local area, right? You're just buying a very small presence. So let's just say you have the $1,000 budget and we break that up into a daily budget, right? Which is about $33 per day. If your cost per click is $15, you're only getting 2 clicks throughout the day. Now, do you want to run a Google Ads campaign that's only going to generate 2 clicks? The answer is probably not, right? So that's why we're recommending the budgets that we really do. And then just breaking down the numbers, if a cost per click is around $15, right, and you have that standard rate of conversion rate of around 10%, right, you need to focus on the ticket prices that are going to generate that revenue for you. Like the gutter industry, for example, right? Your average ticket is probably upwards of 2,000, right? So the idea is the more you're investing into a platform like Google, the more return that you're going to get. And obviously that could lead to future upsells, all of a sudden the neighbors getting their gutters installed as well. So think of that snowball effect of what are you actually doing when you're running a Google Ads campaign? So here's the thing too, not all leads are created equal, right? Some could be like, price shoppers, some could be, just looking around for an estimate. You really need to set yourself apart from the competition in that local area. So how do you do that, right? You focus on things like reviews, right? That's going to lead to somebody to choose you over somebody else. So if you're going to be running Google Ads, like you got to have a solid foundation for reviews. And then just talking about the leads that come in, Lorenz, from a client-facing perspective, like, are there anything that you've seen that our clients are doing to sort of like nurture these leads, or like what sets somebody apart to getting a better close rate?
Yeah, okay. So since managing a lot of clients, they all have their own different styles. And one of the things, the most important thing that they can do is customer relationship. Because as a shopper, we have to put ourselves on a shopper's shoe. And, you would rather work with someone who you feel you're valued, right? So I have a client who gives out stickers, shirts with their company logo on them. I mean, these are just simple things, but it separates you from the others, right? It also is kind of an advertisement on your side. So that's one. And then, as you mentioned, working on the reviews, just making sure you reply to them so the clients, your customers feel heard and seen. Social media, create posts, or everything else that would really help out.
Yeah, and another thing too, right? If you're gonna run Google Ads, like some people like might just be starting a business, right? You can't just jump into Google Ads and expect to be a millionaire by the next month, right? You have to have your system set in place. You have to have somebody answering these leads almost immediately, right? If they're not answering the first time a customer calls, especially if they click on that ad, it is likely they're going to start calling some other companies. So think of the importance of your systems before you even jump into running something like a Google AdWords campaign. Um, and the other thing too, right, is keyword targeting, right? The higher the intent, a lot of times the higher the cost per click, right? Because they know that's going to more easily lead to those conversions. So like Dave, what do you really do to make sure that somebody has a high conversion rate? Or what have you seen in like the trends that you've been implementing to get somebody the best performance possible?
Again, great question. So that's also a tough one, just because it varies depending on industry and it varies depending on location, right? So you could be in a very high, very populated area, like in New York, for example, or a big city like Houston or Dallas, right? Where exact match keywords, because the search volume is high enough, so exact match keywords will be able to reach all the customers that you're really looking for, or most of the customers that you're looking for, right? But if you're in a smaller area, a smaller city, for example, that has less population, so the problem is you might run into some places where the search volume is not high enough for you to only target exact match keywords. So what we'll do in that instance, for example, is we would add phrase match keywords and sometimes broad match. But broad match is a little bit you kind of want to steer away from, especially if you only have $1,000. But the other thing that we'll also add are negative keywords. So as those search terms, what we call them. So as we target keywords, most of the times when someone clicks on the ad, they're not necessarily targeting the exact keyword that we're using. They might have small variations to it, like pressure washing contractor, pressure washing, professional pressure washers near me, things like that, right? So as we start showing up for those keywords, those search terms pop up in the dashboard. And as we see those keywords in the dashboard, we can kind of eliminate the ones that are not relevant to the service that we're searching. So that'll be a good way to increase and improve the conversion rate.
Yeah, and we're actually doing a fun competition here at Pipeline for the month of March, right? So we're actually doing something on the Google Ads team to where it's like, okay, who can actually implement the most negative keywords? And that's actually leading to like these really, really impressive conversion rates where people are jumping above that 20, 30% mark. So think about it this way, right? If you're running a Google Ads campaign, it's just important to have a strong negative keyword list as it is to target those actual keywords that you want to show up for, right? Because there are different variations in the way that people search. There's different intent. And, you know, if your ads aren't optimized, right, Google's going to want to show those. They want you to get those clicks, but it's really up to you to get those conversions.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. It's like you can't be choosing, or you can't think of Google Ads kind of like a scratch off ticket, right? Where you're getting those instant wins here and there, right? You got to think of it like a stock portfolio, right? Where it's like your real investment to you building the momentum, to you having that solid lead funnel, and realistically, that has a lot to do with budget. So another thing is, ads really, really do depend on where you're funneling in that traffic too, right? Because if somebody clicks on an ad, they're either going to a landing page or to your website. And I talk to a lot of people and they want to run Google Ads and they're like, hey, the last company I was working with, we're funneling traffic through the website, but it's not even optimized for a mobile device. And most people nowadays are searching on mobile. So you really need to think of that endpoint as well, like what that customer journey looks like. Because if I come across a page and it doesn't work on my phone, I'm probably not going to give you a call. So what do we do on our ads, Dave? Like, are we doing anything to make sure people get that conversion after the click?
Oh, yeah. So we have call tracking set up so that we're able to see those things. We use a software called CallRail. So basically, it's when that click comes in, that message gets sent to what we call CallRail. that platform that we call CallRail, and then we're able to kind of listen to those messages. We're able to tell whether that lead was a qualified lead or unqualified lead, because all those things are important. Like you said earlier, each lead is not created equal. Actually, just because someone is clicking on your ad, just because someone is clicking on your keywords, doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to buy. Like you said, they could be at a different stage of the funnel. So we need to know that all that data and information is very important for us managers. So once we have that data, we're able to optimize the account much better.
Yeah, and the word optimization is so important because like you can't create a Google Ads campaign and just let it run, right? You have to get feedback, you have to see what's converting, and you have to start structuring the campaign around that if you want to reach those higher percent conversion rates. And so another thing too, if the customer buying journey, let's just say I was looking to get a roof installed in my house, right? If I'm going to go and search on Google, like, best roofing company near me, right? I might click on somebody's ad, but then I might start to research that company a little bit, right? What is this company really like? Like, I don't know somebody at this point. So where you're funneling in traffic to, it's all about building trust, showcasing those reviews, showing you as the business professional. And a lot of people are focusing on content, right? The videos of what it's like to really work with them, because nothing tells a story better than a video. So realistically, if you're advertising, focus on that content. Don't use stock images, right? Showcase your team, celebrate those reviews and happy customers, right? Because that's what people want to see, right? Put yourself in those customers' shoes. So, all right, let's help people win for a second, Dave. Let's just say you've got a solid budget. What should you really do to run a Google Ads campaign? Is there a certain number of services that you should target? Is there a certain area, like maybe like a threshold in population? Like, how can we help people win here?
Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have enough search volume, right, in the area that you're looking for. There's no need to run ads in an area if nobody's looking for your services. So the first thing we need to do is do some research on the back end and make sure that we like to use the metric of at least 1 million people searching for the services that you're offering while you're running per campaign for the Google Ads campaign that you're running. Another thing also that you have to make sure that you have is a healthy budget. You want to make sure they generate at least 5 clicks a day. You'd like to have a little bit more. We need at least, I think 10 would be the ideal, right? At 10 clicks. But again, because cost per click is increasing so much and the budget for a lot of people, things are kind of tough right now. Times are tough. So I can understand we can go down to 5 clicks per day, but anything lower than that, you're just not allowing Google, the algorithm really to learn the system. And if you want to end up saving more money on the back end, you need to give Google that data, that click data, that conversion data, so it can really save you money on the long term.
Yeah, and like we said, right? If you're doing a Google Ads campaign, you're only getting 2 clicks per day. Like, is Google really going to understand things in a short period of time? Probably not, right? But if you're getting 5 to 10 clicks and it's leading to those conversions, guess what? Now you're showing up more often. Google's going to favor your campaign. And what I'm actually seeing is the people that have higher budgets, they're the ones that are winning, right? If you come in with a mindset that you want every single lead or every single person searching for your services, right, you're going to have a very solid lead funnel. So really think about that when it comes to budgeting. What are you looking to get out of this Google Ads campaign? And I know you said 1 million, right? 1 million population is a perfect strong suit. 1 million people that are on Google, searching, not necessarily just for your service, but at least targeting and hitting 1 million people. Exactly. And then Lorenz, right? Have you noticed anybody that has, maybe followed your guidance based off the metrics coming into a campaign? Like, do you have any stories of wins from making those adjustments?
Yeah, of course. So before, there are clients that, started their campaign, okay, it's all right. And then we're not seeing much results. And then after discussing with the team, we found out that there's not much impressions, basically because the target location or the area that they are targeting, there's really not much search going on. And so we had to advise the client that, hey, you might need to expand your target locations so that we can get enough impressions and get enough clicks for you to be able to convert. And yes, I did have a few clients who follow that, and the campaigns have been successful after. But I guess the most important thing here is that when you decide to actually get into Google Ads, to advertising, you have to set your proper expectations. You have to know, you have to have enough budget. You have to understand that it would take at least or about 30 days for Google Ads to really, give you these right leads because of the learning phase. And if you don't really have a healthy budget or you're not prepared to wait for at least that long, then it might not be the right idea for your business. So you really have to be loaded with the knowledge, expectations, and the right financial capability for it.
Yeah, and that's so important, right? Because we talk a lot about these expectations. So setting that from the get-go is so very important because we're working off of a minimum conversion rate, right, of around 10%. Our goal, of course, is to exceed that. So when we do, if we set expectations right from the get-go and we exceed that, guess who's happy, right? The people running these Google Ads campaigns, the people generating leads. And then obviously, if you're, we just did a podcast with one of our clients, right? Chris with Benchmark Quality Gutters. He had a budget set in place, right? He was kind of afraid to really like invest in marketing. And he came on board with us. He was doing about 30,000 per month. And then guess what? From our guidance and then, getting the feedback from these campaigns, we gave him the exact budget, which is going to give him the highest return on investment. And now he's doing 60K per month, right? So that's doubling revenue during that time, right? So it's all based off the metrics. And as you start running these campaigns, the feedback that we get from campaigns and these metrics, it's very powerful because it helps us do our job better. And you really don't want to cut yourself off at the heels and really just limit yourself based on those budgets. So another thing I want to touch on, right, is, Google Ads, it's a great lead generation system, but it's also important to have some sort of an organic presence, right? So you can't really run Google Ads if you don't have a professional website, if you're not really ranking online, because the idea is if you have an ad running, you're in the map section, and then just below that organic search results, somebody's seeing your business 3 times on the first page of Google, I'm probably going to gravitate towards giving you a call. So think about the overall system in your marketing and don't put all your eggs into one basket, right? Make sure it's something sustainable, build up that business and get yourself in the position to where you can make the most out of these advertising efforts. So what would you say is like, Lorenz, what would you say is like the biggest mistake people might make when running like advertising or any sort of like marketing?
I think it's the thinking that when you spend money on ads, that's it. You don't have to do anything else because you're already spending money. I gave you my money, you just do everything else, right? That is one of the greatest mistakes that you can do. The thing is, you have to invest in organic stuff or like on the free things that you don't really need to spend money on. Organic posts on your social media, create an Instagram account, a Facebook account, or TikTok if you want to, because your services are not really inexpensive. If I'm going to spend at least $2,000 for a home service, I would want to see your website. I would like to make sure this is not some company that I don't even know if it's a scam or if it's a legit company, right? So one thing that happened to me personally is that I was looking for a service and I was able to see their Facebook account. So I get there, I checked, and the last post that I've seen was in 2021. And I was like, okay, are they still working? Is this still on? Who do I talk to or whatever? And so that is a red flag for me. So I get to the next one because I would rather talk to a company that I know is still existing by seeing recent posts, not just on Facebook and Instagram, but also on Google business profile. It's very important. Also the reviews. It's always the reviews that we can rely on. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's like, we call it now like search everywhere optimization instead of just search engine optimization. A lot of people don't realize, right? The social media platforms and Google now are communicating. So if you're making consistent posts and you have these keywords and people are engaging and interacting on these social profiles, it's building trust not only with customers, but on Google as well. So yeah, you can't just sit back and run an ads campaign and think, okay, my job here is done. They're handling everything for me. Sure, you're going to generate the leads, but we're more focused on those conversions. Like how many of those people are turning into booked jobs? And I think anybody, working with us will realize, right? We're always trying to be proactive and looking for different solutions and different opportunities. Or if we see something lacking in some place, we're going to try to point it out to you. So the idea is it's a collaborative effort, and we want to be your marketing team. So yeah, I think that's sort of the biggest thing, right? And just to sort of like recap on some of the stuff we touched on today, like $1,000, 5 years ago on Google, that probably would have got you pretty far. It probably would have made a lot of people happy, but we really need to rethink what's going on in the world. We live in a digital age. If you want to get exposure in the market, you have to be willing to make that investment, right? And there's a no obligation strategy call, right? When you book a call with Mr. Pipeline, we're going to tell you very straight up how many people are searching for your services, what the average cost per click is going to look like, what the budget we expect you to have in order to be successful. And obviously we're asking your goals too, right? If you're looking for 50 leads per month, we're going to tell you the exact budget to get you there. But yeah, it's all based on those numbers. So another big thing too, right? If a lot of people are getting into like running these social media campaigns, that's a whole different ball game than something like Google, right? That's more of like a branding play. And I want to talk about like everything in the market right now when it comes to the digital world. $1,000 on Facebook is going to take you a long way. So Google and Facebook are two very different platforms where like Facebook, you might have a cost per click of like, $2, let's just say, where Google, it might be 15. So your budget is going like 8 or 9 times, sometimes 10 times further on something like Facebook than Google. One of the things I see, like a lot of people that we're working with, they might run both, right? So then you have a branding play. You're always on the top of mind. And then when somebody makes that search, boom, the ad catches them. They already know your name and they're ready to convert, because it's always about being at the right place at the right time. And I cannot stress enough how important that is, right? You need to be firing on all cylinders. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket. You need to diversify your marketing like it's a stock portfolio if you want to reap the benefits and come out to potentially selling a multi-million-dollar company in the future. So just to go over a couple different industries, and I'm going to be as transparent as I could possibly be here. If you're in the pressure washing industry, $1,000, it's really just not going to cut it anymore unless you're in a very, very non-competitive area. $1,500 to $2,000 is going to be a fantastic budget to get you far in the pressure washing industry. If you're in the gutter industry, anything under $2,000, it's just not going to cut it. I know you guys have pretty good profit margins, but the cost of material is going up. You need a high volume of leads, right? A lot of our people that are, running ads in the gutter industry, they're running upwards of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per month when it comes to budget. Same thing with roofing, right? So if you're in home service, get an idea of what that budgeting looks like. Make sure you have something to sustain that and you're not just turning it off after 2 weeks, because we put a lot of time and effort into these campaigns. Dave can attest to that, right? We want to see you guys win. And we're trying to give you all the tools and resources to make sure you guys can smoke the competition. So Dave, Lorenz, I think we had a fantastic conversation today. I think there's a lot of value in what we have sort of talked about here. I hope you guys got some really good insights from today's podcast. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, because this is a real journey to shake up the home service industry and help you guys smoke the competition. So thank you so much, Dave, Lorenz, for joining us, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Have a good one.